You made it. Checked out of office to check into the sweet views of this place where the kids aren't asking for the Wi-Fi.
Mom, can we go to the pool?
And when you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.
Sure, you've played scratch-offs, but you haven't played anything like our newest $20 Ohio Lottery scratch-offs. Here's Mega Cash with a $500 instant prize and minimum payouts of at least $30. And Magnificent Millions, which has over $58 million in total prizes. Both scratch-offs have a whopping $2 million top prize. So play Mega Cash and Magnificent Millions from the Ohio Lottery, and you may never look at scratch-offs the same way again. Lottery players are subject to Ohio laws and commission regulations. Play responsibly.
My goodness, we're back. It's Ed Mann, the executive producer of the Real Brady Bros podcast. It is the time of our lives, as the song goes. I think it's a song. Maybe it's a movie. Anyway, we're here, and I'm with the Real Brady Bros right now, as you can hear in the background. They're giggling at almost everything I say. They're so kind. It's Christopher Knight and Barry Williams in person. Hi, guys.
How you doing, Ed?
Ed, you say we're back, but we all know we never went away.
Yeah.
This is true. You weren't really out. You were here. So, and now we're really in person here, which is wonderful, in virtual 3D. We have a Facebook page. If you guys haven't noticed it, anyone listening, you can always visit it. It's at Real Brady Bros, at Real Brady Bros. I'm going to throw a teaser out there. There's a picture of an ironing board there. So you're going to get really excited.
Okay.
Those of you who enjoy doing laundry, it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay.
Well, ironing boards are very useful.
They
if
are.
you bring
And
one
in this case,
on a camping trip or happen to have one and no desk to do your podcast from.
That's exactly correct. Well, guys, we're here. It's Q&A number 12. That's really the reason we're here. And let's get started. Gretchen asks the following question. Again, this was right there on the Real Brady Bros Facebook page. I'd like an explanation of the different cars that were used and seemingly changed continuously with no explanation.
So would we.
Yeah, well, I think Mike Brady, in addition to being an architect, was a used car salesman. And so he was just bringing them home, just finishing work, and whatever he had the keys to, he brought them. That all has to do with the deal with the network. And, well, we had a couple of different sponsors, didn't we? Didn't we have Ford and Chevrolet?
No, we had Chrysler and GM.
And GM. All right, Chrysler, GM. So,
and by the way, the way that we know this, I'm going to help Barry out here. The way that we know this is from actually looking at the last card, I believe, on the credits, where the Brady Bunch or the production of the Brady Bunch is thanking both for Chrysler cars, Chrysler Corporation, and for GM cars, GM.
Right.
So,
I did know a little bit about Chrysler because Sam Stranges, who was one of the interlopers on, with creating deals like that and worked on our show, as well as many other television shows at Paramount Studios. I appealed to him to see if I could get a deal on a Chrysler convertible, like the one Dad was driving into the carport, the Brady carport.
I never knew that. So what did he
nothing
tell you?
ever happened with that. That's one of those things is very humbling. Yeah, we know you think you're a big child teen star now, Barry, but just chill it out.
It's probably right.
Didn't go anywhere.
That's interesting. I'm sure that Chrysler would have loved for you to be driving one of their cars. So I'm sure that if he brought it forward, you would have gotten at least a discount.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Aside from the mention, was there any product placement payments made, do you think? Was there anything
Well,
like
yeah,
that
I think
going on?
that's why they're thanking at the end. If you notice, even on the Hawaii episodes, the thanking of the airlines in the credits at the end is because either they got the flights for free, it was a trade, or they got them at a highly discounted price. So they're trading the PR and the PR angle for budget considerations. So with respect to the cars, and I don't think we fully appreciated it at the time, but we were sort of investigating these questions now, that the studio had a bunch of cars, apparently supplied by Chrysler and GM. That would be Paramount. And we worked it on Paramount's lot. And so when all of a sudden a day came up that required a car, they pulled a car from their pool of cars. There were a few cars that were quite recognizable, and you would think that they would limit themselves to just those cars. But at times, we're using cars like last week's episode we did about the driver's seat, which Barry and I both don't remember where that car came from or if it was ever used again. It was a big, like a GM. It looks like a Chevy, almost like a Cadillac, a big, huge convertible red Chevy. And surprisingly, I'd never seen it in another episode. I could be wrong. So where did that one come from? But we weren't asking these questions at the time.
Or the one that I was, waxing, cleaning, dusting.
That's the same red car, I believe. Okay. It's the one that Marcia drives in the, it's the one that she's out driving with Mike in as she's learning how to drive, and the one that you both you go through the obstacle course in. It's a big red convertible. I don't know if it's on any other episode. But then we had two cars, Barry, and you know this better than I, the models, but the green station wagon, which was, and then the blue Barracuda, also convertible, correct?
I think it was a Barracuda. It was like a precursor to the Charger. Barracuda,
they were used the most. But it seems like in the fourth and fifth season, they sort of lost those other cars, or they didn't have access to them, or another show was using them, maybe Mannix or Mission Impossible. We're using them on the date that we needed it, so they pulled out another car. That could be the answer. We don't really know. But there wasn't any attention placed on the consistency, or not much.
Yeah.
What car?
Okay, well, that answers that. Next question actually comes from Donna, and Tessa asks a somewhat tangential question as well, but let's get to Donna's here. Is it true that Robert Reed shared his great passion for William Shakespeare with you guys, either on set or separately? And this includes a trip to England and the Shakespeare Theater. He provided all the kids with movie cameras to document the trip. And she says, thank you so much for enjoying the podcast. What's your thoughts on that? What are your memories?
Couple of things. One is the cameras were not actually bought for that specific purpose. Those were Christmas gifts. I took one with me to on that trip, and that's where a lot of that footage comes from. The answer is yes, he did share his love of Shakespeare and all things classic in terms of acting. And that trip included not only a stop in New York, but also London. And then we did go up to Stratford on Avon to the Royal Shakespearean Theater and watch a production of one of his plays there.
Was it As You Like It? I can't remember the play we actually saw, but
and we also saw plays in London, and I saw my first Broadway plays on that trip. One of which was Pippin, and I was so inspired by seeing that I later went back to New York, auditioned for Bob Fosse, and that became my first Broadway credit, my first touring credit, my first time on the stage, and I reprised that role in probably 8 different productions after that. But it was a fabulous trip.
I don't recall going to any other production other than the Shakespeare production up on Stratford.
We went to see Mousetrap. Mousetrap, which is the longest running show in London, and very classic. But Robert studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, and he wanted us to have the experience of that city, and as it relates to acting and to productions and to theater and the things that were very, very significant in his development as an actor. It included flying to New York and taking the QE2 luxury ship over to
5 days on the water from New York to London.
Over to
or Liverpool.
Southampton. Where we landed. And we had the time of our lives. It was all 6 of the Brady kids. Our set teacher, Mrs. Whitfield, Robert Reed, and Robert Reed's parents. That was the traveling group, and we stayed in wonderful hotels, and he paid for, a great part of the trip. There were a certain part of the transportation that I think we all were responsible for, but he basically financed it and was a great, great tour guide for us, and a trip we'll never forget.
I think that because, Bob is an actor. Theater is the medium for actors. They say film is a director's medium and television is a producer's medium. Well, theater is that for an actor. And I, seeing that we worked in this field, that Bob wanted to start our education into, acting, and having an appreciation for perhaps where it started, if you look towards Shakespeare. And he did buy us over Christmas prior to this trip, maybe even prior to us knowing we were being invited on this trip, the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So we all had cameras to take with us on the trip.
Oh.
And then the following Christmas, after we had the trip, he got us all projectors. And then he invited us over to his house in Pasadena to show our movies. I remember that as well. Yeah, it was a very generous and thorough, well thought kind of gift and trip that we all got to share in. And I remember, though, being frustrated because I know, Barry, you were old enough to go out while in London, but I wasn't. And I know that actually you were able to go out with Maureen, and maybe even drag Eve out, but there was no way I was going to make it by any card checking bouncer.
You couldn't do a pub crawl.
I had to stay home.
No.
Well, I was only 17. I wasn't doing pub crawls.
But I will bring this up. This is a story we haven't probably shared in a long while. On the QE2, Barry and I shared a stateroom, and we both discovered something. And I was just as impressed that something of this nature wasn't something I had any past experience with, but neither did Barry. And to me, Barry he knew everything, And so the thing was in our bathroom next to our toilet, and if you turned it on, it shot water up to the ceiling. We were wondering why the fountain was in our bathroom.
Chris actually turned this thing on and thought that the ship had sprung a leak.
But I said, Barry, what is it? But Barry couldn't answer me. He didn't know what it was either. So we became much more.
Well, neither one of us had shared the experience
trip
of a bidet, which is what this was. It was like having two.
It wasn't an
porcelain bowls.
iceberg.
No,
it was a bidet.
And you got that answer from, if I'm not mistaken, Maureen, right? She was able to inform you.
Not an easy discussion.
Not with your sister.
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Ron points out the following, and this is really funny. Greg's dream date on one episode is wearing the same exact outfit that Marcia wore to meet Davy Jones in another episode.
Are you kidding?
We saw this picture. It was on Facebook. I think we put it on the page. If we haven't, we will. You got to explain this one. This is just too weird.
What is the name of that episode where you have
with Jennifer Nichols?
You're judging the cheerleaders.
I have no idea what it's called.
I'm quickly thumbing through your book, Barry, to find out.
Fair enough. It's called Growing Up Brady, available on eBay.
Wherever books.
Barry Williams Direct. In fact, you could probably have a book in your hands faster than Chris can figure out the name of the episode.
I know it's supposed to be episode 61, but I know that your book has episod numbers different. And where is it?
Some of which seem to be kind of random. But anyway, so while Christopher is looking to, I have a dream date. There's a dream girl, and typical California kind of blonde, very nice, wonderful actress. Jennifer Nichols, I believe is her name.
Greg's Triangle.
Right? 3 girls. Why not? Okay, and she has this very nice outfit on, a sweater with a skirt, and then cut to like 23 episodes later in a different season.
I had it backwards. In fact, the same outfit is worn by the actress playing Jennifer Nichols in episode 83.
Okay.
But it was first seen in Getting Davy Jones in episode 63.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. For them to buy an outfit for a guest and then do a hand-me-down to the star is maybe not the most appropriate use of the wardrobe rack.
But it's throwing Maureen under the bus there in the wardrobe department.
Yeah. It was as though people were producing the show without any recognition that if they went into reuse and were repeated, people would see these lack of continuity problems with cars, and that Marcia is wearing an outfit that later, in the following year, a date of Greg's or a girlfriend of Greg's is wearing, and it's exact.
And part of what you're describing, Chris, is simply the different mindset of the industry at the time, the respect that feature films would be given versus the lack of respect television would be given. Television was a business, straightforward, saving money, moving quickly, and there wasn't really much thought to the things that create the art. There was a lot of thought about storytelling, but if you walked out of a room and with one shirt on and walked into the next room like immediately after, and it's a different shirt, it was sometimes just plain old overlooked. And you and I bring up examples of, for instance, we drove one car up to the Grand Canyon and then drove an entirely different car around the Grand Canyon and then drove the first car back home. So, I mean, it was that kind of, and people never thought that anybody would notice.
I certainly didn't believe that anybody watching the show would over time realize that the house that we were walking around in the set couldn't have possibly been the house.
Yes,
that
it's a one-story ranch house,
shot. Yeah.
Right? Or it was before HGTV made it the Brady Bunch set.
50 years later, we would almost, put that conundrum to rest and build it.
So in reference to the guest stars and people who had come on, since you brought up, it was Miss Nichols, right? Was the
yes.
Jennifer Nichols was a character.
Rob asked the following question. I was curious if there ever was a guest or cameo appearance that was so good or simply seemed so a part of what was going on, if there was any talk of that actor or actress becoming a recurring character on the show. And then Marion asks specifically about Imogene Coca in that respect. What was that all
would
about?
she have been great to become a regular cast? She was just such a wonderful actress. You'd have to go back to your show of shows to really see what she was about. And it would, just for many of our listeners, it would be a historian, because Imogene really rose and enjoyed the greatest part of her fame before we met her. But there is a genius that comes with her acting and comedic skills that is inescapable to recognize, and it was such fun to be around. It's kind of like a John Winters kind of that comedy that's you don't know exactly what hit your funny bone, but you're laughing and you're just on a ride with him. Well, she had that quality, so she would have been a terrific character. But I don't think, other than Cousin Oliver, they ever really.
Yeah, the ones that stuck were the ones that were planned.
Yeah,
they were. I mean, there was a pilot, actually, a spin-off pilot that was built into I think it's 108th episode in Barry's book, called The Kelly Kids, with starring Ken Barry, and I believe it was it Joyce Bulifant? That played his
Joyce Bulifant.
His wife.
Originally, they had considered casting for Carol Brady.
Right. She
was one of the contenders.
She was the contender for the brunette version of Carol, though I believe she mostly worked as a blonde. I don't know.
Yes, she did.
But the fact is that The Kelly Kids was a spin-off pilot. There was 3 kids of different races that fathered by a character that Ken Barry played and Joyce Bulifant was the mother of, that we were taking care of in an episode.
Well,
I'm not
they
sure
weren't
exactly
fathered by him. They were adopted.
Of course, they were adopted. Sorry, but still, they were fathered by him.
Well, Ken Barry can get around. Boy, he's got
DNA.
Every ethnicity in America. He's got one of them.
They're adopted, fathered by him.
Yes.
One of the sons is actually Michael Lookinland's brother, Todd Lookinland,
right?
Cast in that role. But so any of the shows where there were perhaps discussions of a guest star becoming a regular, it was because it was planned. Not there was no room on our show as it was constituted with the 9 of us to really work in another character.
Yeah, remember this
now,
television.
Mind you, if you would have lost, Greg going to college and Mike not being around anymore, they might have needed Imogene Coca.
And remember, the TV sets were much smaller then, so you could only get harder to fit us.
We were smaller too.
No one knew that Lucille Ball had red hair for decades. It was like,
right.
You got to be kidding.
That's true.
Yeah. Who would have known?
Interesting. Yeah.
In this regard about continuity, you guys had mentioned earlier, and about how things might go from show to show properly, and how to keep the continuity of the story of a season going. Lisa asks about writers. How did the show and the characters keep continuity when there were different writers assigned? Did Paramount have a stable of them? How did that work?
No,
They didn't have a stable.
They did not have a stable. That was
They
all
did not?
independently done. But writers, no writers, no writers. And Sherwood Schwartz is a writer, and we had producers, but we did have storyline supervisors,
Script supervisor, right?
and they would oversee precisely what she's asking about. Jan wouldn't say that, or Peter might might say this differently, and so that there was continuity and oversight. Because the writers, they'd watch an episode or two and try to get a flavor for it, and then present their idea. Well, it's hard to do that and put the voice onto the page. So we had script supervisors to do that, story supervisor.
I'm not entirely clear how that worked. I mean, it was, I know that, I have friends who are writers, and on occasion they'll be writing a script for an episode of a series that they're going to submit, right? They have a great idea and they're going to submit it. And I'm sure that some of our shows perhaps were initially thought up that way. A fan of the show or a writer of scripts, of teleplays, thinks, he studies the characters in the show and has a good idea and is going to submit a Brady Bunch episode. Or if it is the producers and the production that is going out soliciting from writers that exist, in the workaday Hollywood realm about writing for the show. I know that certainly Al Schwartz was probably brought in to flesh out maybe some broad stroke ideas that Sherwood had. Not on necessarily spec, but listen, I got this idea for this episode. Maybe Sherwood says to Al, finish it out and and submit it back, because they have a pool of scripts that they pull from, and then they work further to get them into shape. But it's not like is depicted a lot of times. There's a room full of writers. That would more so be the case in a situation comedy that's produced in front of a live audience.
And of course, those have their own challenges. And famously, Gary Shandling began a lot of his writing career on Sanford and Sons.
I didn't know
Sanford
that.
and Son, and and he got bored with it, as he did with almost everything he did.
But see, now that is a stable of writers.
It's a stable of writers, but they had to replace a genius like that, with someone else, and do it effectively. Of course, they always had Red Fox to deliver the line. He could probably deliver anything funny. Yeah, I mean, every show has their own challenges.
In light of that, though, I mean, like Sanford Son or Odd Couple, they had a stable of writers writing every episode, right? I mean, maybe somebody gets pulled out, Gary Shandling goes off and does something else, and they got a new writer in there. But there's a continuity in the writing. Because ours was done with contracting out the writing, there's less continuity.
Interesting. We've got time for one more, and this is to clear something up. Kevin Mahar, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, or Mar, mentioned something that Barry talked about in a previous Q&A, a very recent one, about Fred Silverman, who was president of NBC at one time and also of ABC. And he wondered, didn't the Variety Hour that you guys did air on ABC, and Silverman, who was running NBC when the Brady Brides aired? It seems to be a very confusing little twist.
I needed to
this route.
Yeah, Fred Silverman had a amazing career. He was the head of not just those two, but also CBS. And he came to ABC from CBS in 1975. The Variety Hour was 76, 77. And then Fred moved on to NBC in 78. So it was my bad of the part that was accurate was that it was Fred Silverman's green light for the Brady Variety Hour that got it up on the air. And they both were at ABC. And then Fred moved on to NBC in 78. But another aspect of this, of what he talked about, was was H.R. Puffin stuff, which was filmed at Paramount. And our Variety Hour was later to be done by Sid and Marty Krofft. And so I
didn't know that H.R. Puffin stuff was done at Paramount, though. I thought it was done at ABC.
No. Well, at least it was done over the same soundstage where All in the Family was and where Odd Couple was. And so we had done this special, this promotion, the Brady Kids Meet the Stars of ABC. And we met during the course of that show. The Jackson 5 came by, and we saw kind of the new lineup of things. And apparently we did a scene from H&R Puffin stuff with their characters like Witchy Poo. And I believe it was filmed It must have been filmed at the same.
No, and I remember
that was filmed at ABC.
That was filmed at ABC. Yeah,
Prospect and Talmadge. Mm-hmm. So that's how we came to be, quote, with H.R. Puffin's stuff, but not on H.R. Puffin's stuff. It was part of this promotional special.
And thank you, Kevin, for illuminating that, because I saw this
clip,
some footage a number of months ago that you again shared, but the video that you shared had the title, and I couldn't recall what we had done. And this is the case of a lot of the stuff that we would have done. Mm-hmm. It's a special that we're asked to participate in. It happens quickly. There might be some pictures that document the event, but outside of the video and the pictures, there's no recollection in my mind of what it was that we had done. And that was the case with this video that I saw with us with H.R. Puffin stuff. And it's like I'd forgotten completely that we'd done this special and that it was a Saturday morning special. And that makes sense because it was ABC's Saturday morning special, the Brady Bunch meeting, ABC Saturday morning superstars. We were on ABC. That makes sense that what they want from us is us to participate in a cross promotion, being on some special they put on Saturday.
Anyway, it's a great catch. I'm glad we had a chance to clean it up a little bit, and it has refreshed my memory for sure.
And now Kevin can sleep at night. It's really wonderful.
No, please don't. Keep looking for things like that and bringing them to our attention.
They do. Oh, yeah. In fact, having said that, on another note, we did have a number of people get to us on the Facebook page about the Real Brady Bros doing recaps of things other than necessarily the actual episodes of the program that aired every week on ABC. There were all of these other specials and so many other things that you guys were involved with. And yes, the question was addressed to me, so I will answer it. We will do those things, and we'll do them interstitially throughout the coming years. And we're very excited to have these out there for the fans and for you guys to respond to. And there you go. That's it. That's Q&A number 12. Thank you, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Have a sunshine day, everybody.
Gearheads know that some projects need so many parts, it feels like you need a whole storage unit just to store them. That's what eBay Motors' 122 million parts are for. Think of it as your virtual parts garage. They've always got the right fitment at the right prices. Use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Sure, you've played scratch-offs, but you haven't played anything like our newest $20 Ohio Lottery scratch-offs. Here's Mega Cash with a $500 instant prize and minimum payouts of at least $30. And Magnificent Millions, which has over $58 million in total prizes. Both scratch-offs have a whopping $2 million top prize. So play Mega Cash and Magnificent Millions from the Ohio Lottery, and you may never look at scratch-offs the same way again. Lottery players are subject to Ohio laws and commission regulations. Play responsibly.